Okay, John Stevenson here. This video is all about how you can pass the Humber Real Estate course here in Ontario as fast as you can. You can actually get this down to 61 days. If you want to skip to the end, then I lay it out exactly for you. If you just hit like and subscribe, that would be great. I didn't want this to be one of those videos where someone talks about how to do something really fast but takes 20 minutes to do it. So anyone who wants that information right now, skip to the end. But if you stick around, there's going to be a lot of information here, a lot of useful stuff as to how the journey happened, as well as some tips along the way. So first of all is knowing whether this is right for you. I moved to Canada from England in 2012. I bought my first property a year later and did that completely without a realtor. Now, wouldn't really recommend that. I was a little naive coming into it, and I'm the sort of person who was like, you know what, I can do this myself. And I saw a for sale by owner and thought, you know what, I am also going to do it completely without a realtor. Everything went really well, so that was not really a relief at the time. Again, I was pretty naive. I just assumed it would go really well. But knowing more now, I know there was a lot of times, a lot of areas that could have gone really wrong. When I came to sell that property, I also sold it without a realtor. And it was a little complex as well because it was a property with solar panels on the roof that was sold back to the grid, so it was also the transfer of that. So there's definitely a lot of complexities in that, but it was a really good experience, and knowing that I could do that, knowing now as I came to this change, is I was like, you know what, I can easily achieve this. So I actually took 80 days, so slightly longer than the 61, but not a huge amount. But I did take a vacation to England in the middle of it, so I do have some excuses. So is this for you is the question. So if you're someone who has some previous experience like I had, I've also figured out that in the last 14 years I have moved 13 times with a bunch of buys and sells in amongst that. 4 of those were moves overseas and back. So definitely quite a bit of experience. If you're an assistant in the industry right now, then you're obviously going to have a lot of knowledge coming into this. So again, that's going to be really beneficial for you. If you're doing this and you've got very little experience to no experience, I'm obviously not going to recommend that you try and get through this as fast as possible, because you're going to finish at the end and you're really not going to know a lot about anything. Now, having said that, there is plenty that you're going to learn anyway when you finish the courses. It's one of those where there's only going to be so much you can really absorb until you're actually doing it. But the other thing as well is if you don't test well, this is also not going to be a great idea for you, because it's very much heavy on the testing side of it. You're going to need 75% to pass, which at first seems quite a high amount, but actually when you think about it, that is just 3 out of 4 questions correct. 1 out of 4 questions you can get wrong, which is pretty bad when the exam is made up of about 100 questions, some 115, some a little less. So essentially it's at least 25 questions that you can get wrong, which aside from this, I personally believe is pretty low. Should be a little higher, just because you don't want the person who's dealing with one of the biggest purchases of your life to have got 1 out of 4 questions wrong on an exam. But for this purpose, it works great because you're going to be able to hit 75% pretty easily if you're really working at it. So the key thing for this, when you start the course, you've got to make sure. So on one day you start the course, the next day is when you can access it. That day is when you've got to finish that course. So when I was doing it, when I got towards the end of the courses, this is when I was really hammering this exactly as what I'm telling you now. Earlier on, I took a little more time on a few of the modules, which is why it took me an extra 20 or 19 days. But once you've registered, you can access it the next day, you finish it. And the way you're going to do that, personally, just a little tip, I grabbed a tablet and I was just hitting it like that. So much quicker than having to have a mouse or using the trackpad to then move the cursor around and have to skip videos. Just found it quicker using the tablet. Once you've done that, then it allows you to book your exam. So you can book your exam 6 days out from there, and that then gives you that opportunity to go back and actually learn through some of the stuff, which is why I wouldn't recommend if you've never really done it before, because there is a lot there. But the way that I did it, I wouldn't actually go back to any of the actual content to start with. What I would do is I subscribe to Pass-It. So each course has its own Pass-It. You go on the website there and it is really, really good. So it's broken down as well. Within each course, it's broken down into each module. So then what you can do is you can answer all the questions. It gives you the score for each module. And then from there, you can go in and say, okay, you know what, module 3, I wasn't getting a great score, so I'm going to improve that one. So I'm only going to take exam questions on module 3. Now, if you're still not getting great scores, what you can do is you can go back to the Humber website, and you're going to go on there and you're going to access module 3. And that is where you're going to go through all the actual content and really start to learn it. Then you're going to come back, go into the exam again, and start doing it until you're hitting a total of 80%. So that's my aim all the time. I always made sure that every module I hit 80%, just so I could feel confident going into the exam. And that is actually what Pass It recommended as well. And I did feel pretty confident going into most of the exams that I was not going to get a quarter of the questions wrong. So another little tip for the exams, especially if you're going to do this as fast as possible, is it is done with ProctorTrack. ProctorTrack is a bit of a pain, but if you make sure that you've done the room scan well before you take your first exam. So as soon as you're able to get into ProctorTrack, do that scan, just because it's not done live, so they have to then review the video, and if you have any problems, it's going to keep bumping it back, and it just makes sure that you do have a room that's ready for the exam. So what it'll get you to do is do a little room scan and a few different things, and then they'll either approve it or reject it. Now, if you try and do that within 2 days of your exam, it's not going to come back in time, so then you're going to have to rebook your exam, and that bumps you back a whole 6 days. Not what we're looking to achieve by completing this in 61 days. Okay, so let's do this full breakdown now. So on day 1, you're going to register and book the course 1 soon as you can. Also, a little tip here is book your background check. Just because if you've done that, it could take a couple of months, it might take 30 days, might take a lot less, but at least if you've got that, then you're ready when you want to apply for the license. Day 2, you're going to actually complete course 1 and then book your exam on day 3. So as soon as you've skipped through all those courses, then you'll be able to book the exam. Day 4, you're going to do that the ProctorTrack and make sure you've done the onboarding exam, is what they call it, which just makes sure that you have a room that is ready for their requirements. So now you're going to have a little bit of time to wait. So that's when you're going to go through all your Pass It questions and make sure that you've got that, you're at least hitting 80%, and then you're good to go. Like I said earlier on in the video, if you come back and then go into the Humber courses, say you're not doing very well on module 5, then you'll access module 5 and make sure that you're actually hitting the 80% when you keep going back to Pass It. So then you're going to do the exam on day 9. I'd say course 1 was a fairly easy exam. It was very much the basics, and if you do well on course 1, then I feel like you're going to do pretty well going through, just because you've clearly got the basics down. Day 10, you'll get the results of that exam, and you're going to book course 2 straight away. So you're going to book that same day. Usually the results come through around midnight, just after, so you're going to book them for the next day. So you're on to day 11 now, and you're going to complete course 2. So you're just going to skip through that, skip, and then the next day you're going to book exam 2. So day 18, you're going to hit the course 2 exam, and then you'll get your results the next day, day 19, and book course 3. Course 3 is a pretty small one, so this one's a fairly easy one to get done within the shortest amount of time. You're going to complete that course on that first day, and then book that exam immediately after that, and then you're going to spend your time doing course 3. One thing that you can do as well is when you do the exam, you can also be accessing then the Pass It questions for the next module, so you actually get an extra day to go through those Pass It questions. Say your exam is at 9 a.m. in the morning, you've then essentially got all day to start going through the next course. So day 28, you're going to book the simulation 1, and you're also going to book that exam. Key tip is make sure that exam is booked right away. So if it finishes on a Friday, you want to book that for Saturday, and then you'll complete the simulation once you've booked it. The quickest you can possibly do it is 5 days later. So if you just time it perfectly, so Wednesday, you can actually book that from the Wednesday. You can book it to start on the Monday, and that's where you can save the amount of time, which I actually managed to do for simulation 2. Simulation 1, I think I was slightly delayed on getting that one, so it took me slightly longer. Day 39 is your simulation 1 exam as soon as you've finished the simulation 1. And again, you're going to get the results the next day. So you're going to book course 4 and you're going to complete it the next day and book your exam. Day 48, you're going to actually do the exam and get that done, get your results the next day, so that you're then going to be able to book Simulation 2 and the exam. Simulation 2 is actually only 4 days, so you can book your exam on the Friday. You can do these simulations over a weekend, but again, we're doing this the fastest way possible. That is definitely going to slow you down quite significantly. So day 54 to 57, you're going to be completing Simulation 2, and then you're going to have that exam on the Friday, day 58. Day 59, you book course 5, and you complete that course on day 60. That one, there is no exam for it. You simply just have to go through it. It's a lot of stuff related to changes that have happened that have not been updated in the course as it is right now. The next day, you're going to get confirmation that that's done, and you'll be able to send off your application to RECO for licensing. I think I got mine back after 2 or 3 days from sending it off, so that one is pretty quick. So there you go. If you started on a Thursday, you can get this done in 61 days. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you did enjoy it, if you can hit like and subscribe, I'm going to be having a lot more videos coming in shortly.